Hello. Whoa. I'm not sure how I feel about microphones either. Can you all hear me okay? Cool. Yep, my name is Jenny, and I would like this talk to be more participatory in line with the sort of work that I'm trying to do right now. So if you have any questions, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions as well. Please jump in and participate. I am interested in the next stage of human evolution and how we can create a more functional read-write culture rather than a read-only culture, moving beyond consumerism to DIY production and co-creation. I'm a bit underprepared for this talk because I've spent the past week or so valiantly organizing a fundraiser for an Oakland hackerspace that we're trying to open up called Pseudo Room. And so last night we had a panel of space founders, hackerspace founders across the San Francisco Bay Area. And it turned into less of a fundraising event for Pseudo Room and more of a co-organizing situation of mapping out all of the awesome open spaces in the Bay Area. So we had Mitch Altman, the founder of Noisebridge, give kind of a lead-in talk, and then we had other participants from Hacker Moms, which is a childcare slash hackerspace that just opened up in Berkeley, and Joseph Jackson from BioCurious, which is a DIY biospace in the South Bay, and one of the founders of Ace Monster Toys, which is a makerspace in Oakland, and who else? LOL Space, which is just starting out, which is devoted to creating a open technical creative community for people of color, more of the underrepresented populations of East Oakland. Pseudoverm itself is devoted to citizen science and DIY bio also, and also principally community action oriented projects. So a lot of people who've been working with Occupy, and Oakland has a long history of intense activism. So it's really exciting. We're just trying to open up a room around right now. If you guys are in the Bay Area, do check out Noisebridge or Pseudoroom once we open a space at pseudoroom.org. Not to just promote a space, but just to give an outline of what I've been up to for the past couple of weeks. About a month ago, I taught my last class in my PhD program down in San Diego and got the fuck out of there. Who here has dropped out of academia or school, some form? A lot of people. That feels good. Solidarity. And who here has been to a hackerspace? Yeah, this is a totally different community from the ones I'm used to speaking to. Down in my academic program, I could barely get an idea across without having to define what a hackerspace is, what permaculture is, what an intentional community is. And there are lots of models for creating the utopian reality that we all know is possible that have been going on for decades. And I think it's all kind of coming to a hilt right now, to a fever pitch. And I guess I should tell the story of my own dropping out from academia system, which is also linked to Scott Bibin, and I'm sad that he's not here right now. But about a year ago, I was chatting with Scott Bibin online, and I was incredibly depressed. Grading another, 500 pages of student exams of dribble, of, and hating it, and just wanting to do the research that I came there to do in the first place, which was to explore and map out intentional communities, alternative communities, eco-villages, hacker spaces that were, for me, deeply inspiring and really in need of some better representation on the web, because a lot of people weren't familiar with these sort of practices that were ongoing, and how easy it is to just go visit an eco-village, to go woofing. How many of you are familiar with woofing? Worldwide Organization of Organic Farmers. or couch surfing, all of these ways that you can move about in this country or the globe, generally for free, just offering your skills, your time, your desire to participate. And I was not able to do that research because I was stuck in an institution that I hated and I was deeply depressed about. So he invited me to come up north to go camping in Point Reyes with a bunch of BCI folks, as he called them, brain-computer interface kids, which they weren't at all, actually. One was a plant pathologist, another a software developer, another more of a designer, business-oriented type. But we all connected over this shared desire to create a map of the kinds of experiments in collaborative, networked living and mutual aid and gift economies that we were seeing all over the place, and wanting to create a website, essentially, to network them all together. So we connected over that, and I took my first leave of absence from academia after camping out with these guys for one night. The day after I camped out with them, I was introduced to Noisebridge for the first time. How many of you are familiar with Noisebridge? Cool. Yeah. And I was introduced to the world of free and open source software, and I started to learn how to code. We worked for several months on trying to open a hackerspace in Oakland. The aim was to create a live workspace with live spaces upstairs and labs downstairs, a food lab, a soft lab, a wet lab for DIY bio stuff, and a hackerspace that would be open to the community. And that initial project fell through only because the landlord's ex-wife, they were going through a sticky divorce at the time, put a stop payment on all of his building expenditures, so he couldn't put up the $50K necessary to upgrade the sprinkler system. But nevertheless, we moved into a two-bedroom apartment with a big backyard next door to the space that we wanted to open up. And I live there now, and it's grown. We've got a garden emerging, and a yurt and a tiny house that has been built in the backyard. We live 6 to a two-bedroom apartment, $1,000 rent. I've become a bike person rather than the kind of car person I had to be by necessity in Southern California. I took my second leave of absence in the fall once Occupy started up, because this was exactly the kind of crafting out of public spaces and people coming together to really figure out how to create the kind of society that we wanted to live in. I got pulled into working on the Occupy SF website, which was really hard and really, really rewarding. And all the projects that I've been involved in since are generally volunteer projects. And I've found you can, by doing what you love and what you're really passionate about and working together with people, there is less of a need to make money because our resources are pooled and shared. I want to engage more participatorily. How do I go about doing this? Let's see. So I went back in January to finish up my last quarter, and I moved back up to Oakland. And what I'm working on right now is trying to create a co-awareness platform to align projects and people and ideas. And so I'm very much interested in finding more people who want to work on projects like this to join the project. The Occupy Wall Street web tech team has a project that they're currently starting up that's very much aligned with this, called the Federated General Assembly Project. So if you Google OWS-FGA, they have a red mine up and emerging community, and they're very much in need of more developers to work on it. So if you want to engage, there was a question earlier about how can we who was the one who asked the question, how can we as software, as engineers, what was your question exactly?
I was asking, as technological engineers, if we're interested in social engineering, what were some of the, for social activism, what were some of the resources?
Yes, awesome. So I think there are a lot of people who have these social science or liberal arts backgrounds who are wanting to get involved but don't know how to make things or build things. And there needs to be more collaborations between engineers and anthropologists, between sociologists and developers, between designers and activists to create these projects together, and there needs to be more spaces. Right now I'm mostly interested in creating more hacker spaces and knitting together the hackerspace communities across the globe. Hackerspaces.org obviously is the sort of central resource for that. And I think it's being in spaces that are open to anyone who can just come in with no skills, or so they say. Like I came to Noisebridge and I'm like, I have no skills, I have nothing to teach, but that's not necessarily true. Because by being on the ground at Occupy and seeing what the needs are on the ground of people just talking, like needing to learn how to post to the website, like a WordPress site. And we did build a WordPress site, much to the horror of a lot of the hackers and developers that surrounded me. But the key to that was like, well, it works, it functions, and it does work for better or worse at times. But previously, the site had been a Joomla site, and it was one person who was holding a lot of the keys to actually like being able to change anything on the site. And so we needed to create a more participatory, interactive website that was easy for anyone to use. And WordPress is pretty easy because it's kind of the standard at this point. What is it, like 50% of the content? The FGA project is an attempt to build a suite of Drupal modules and other free and open source software tools, but I think it's principally being built in Drupal. So the goal is to switch over to, I guess, to a Drupal platform for more of the camps, but more coders, more developers on the project. Any more questions that can guide where I can take this? Because I wasn't sure what my crowd would be, and I'm delighted that it's mostly like hackers and. That's cool.
I don't know that much about it. I just know that they're doing it. That exists.
That's awesome.
How do you start a hackerspace near you?
How do you start a hackerspace near you? How did it happen for me? Find a couple of friends who want to work on projects together and start meeting up and getting the word out. I think a lot of people want to be involved in this, and it's amazing. Like last night, there was so much food, so much abundance that people just made dips and brought food, and people got the word out, posted to a lot of the local blogs and news sources like Oakland Locals, awesome new online news organization that's very much aligned with Occupy and with the emerging startup and hackerspace community in the East Bay. So posting on places where people are going to see this and going out and talking beyond your sphere. My major problem with academia was that it was academics talking to each other constantly. The last conference that I spoke at was a couple months ago in Montreal. It was the American Anthropological Association annual meeting, and it cost a couple $100s to get into this conference. 2 blocks away was this huge Occupy camp. It was awesome. That was the first thing I saw when I got out of the subway when I arrived. And I spent my first evening just hanging out at the Occupy camp, and they were like, "We want to come see your talk." And $200 ticket, this huge convention center, like right down the street. So I ended up hacking my talk and just making a declarative for all of the academics present in the audience to get out to the Occupy camp and do teach-ins and like spread their knowledge beyond the realm of other anthropologists to the people who really need to learn from their knowledge. So diversity is the health of a community, is the health of a flock. The more people are engaging across spheres of specialization and collaborating in an interdisciplinary manner, the more innovation we have, and the stronger our communities can grow and function effectively. So I think it's actually not that difficult to start a hackerspace if you're engaging with your community, like across these domains beyond your tiny social sphere. So it entails getting out there and going to cafes. We got an offer for a space just by, I was sitting with one of the pseudo room crew in Awaken Cafe, a cafe in downtown Oakland, and we were talking about May Day activities and wanting to maybe do a Port of Oakland parody site with like real news about the Port of Oakland. And this guy with a long red beard and long blonde hair sitting like at the table next to us just perked up and he's like, "Are you guys trying to start a hackerspace by any chance? I have this 5,000 square foot space and I want it to be a hackerspace." Just being out in the public sphere and having these conversations openly and being willing to like talk to your neighbors and engage with the people around you, having a very like open attitude about what it is your dream is and being loud about it, I think just draws the right forces towards you. So I'm a strong believer in serendipity on that front. I think largely the development of pseudo rooms and the momentum that we have has been the result of that kind of just serendipity of the right people coming together at the right time. I see a question over here.
I'm wondering if you can share some tips on how to craft a lifestyle that affords you the slack to work on fun things as opposed to being stuck in a day job in a city area as expensive as the SFB area.
Yeah, the slack is key. I think there's a lot of expenses that I've cut out. I don't buy things anymore. There's so much that you can just find and reuse. And I live with a lot of people who have a diversity of skills. I live with a hardware hacker and a clothes hacker. She makes menswear out of refurbished men's clothes that she finds at thrift stores and stuff. And a software hacker who's also a DIY bio enthusiast. And because I live with such a diverse group of people who are able to like make different things, we pool our talents together and we're learning from each other. And I think that really helps when you live with a diverse group of people who have skills and you're co-teaching and sharing your resources constantly. That I also have a pretty sweet little tax refund coming back to me of $1,500 that I can probably make last a couple of months, but it's tricky. I'm still learning a lot of the skills of growing your own food. I think is really important too if you're able to. Get a space with garden plot that's great, but there's also indoor growing techniques, hanging wall gardens and that sort of thing. There's a way to maximize space effectively. So I think growing your own food and pooling resources and just diving into DIY culture. Also living in a place like Oakland, there's so many resources all around us like that are thrown out. Any city, there's restaurants that are throwing their excess food out at the end of the day. If you can just hit those spots like right before they close, you can like pool all the salad bar at Mao's or what have you, and then you have salad for your family at home that night. There's another question over here.
So there's a lot of folks from the Bay Area here, and a lot of speakers too came down. I think that you have to learn the skills that will help you succeed in your environment. I think that environment in LA is very different. The tech scene it's here and it's underground, kind of. It's not as apparent as the Bay. I don't think it's likely that you're going to be in a random cafe talking about it and someone's like, "Oh yeah, hackerspace, I've been waiting for that." So I'm wondering if there are people here that have had success with hackerspaces in the LA area. I know you have toured some of them, but I haven't talked to anybody that's been able to share how they made it work and if it's different.
I know there's two spaces that I know of. Crash Space you were mentioning to me earlier, and someone else was talking about null space. Is it null space? Machine project?
So they're the oldest, and
they're not a hackerspace.
They're still doing stuff.
Okay, because every time I'm trying to check in with them,
They're not
that's a problem.
They're an art gallery, not a hackerspace. They have classes, but they're not a hackerspace that's open, that you can get a key to and go and work on stuff.
You know, that's the question really is, does anybody have a garage we can use?
Right. You know, we actually wanted to turn a farmhouse into a hackerspace for a while, then we sobered up. And we never asked Shane about it either. But
maybe the advantage is LA is so huge that there is a hacking project almost every week. Like Danny Greenfield's got one next Saturday. Spire.io is hosting one on Wednesday. Ron Evans does stuff all the time. Like there's always a place, but maybe it's not one centralized
just
place.
come over to my house. We hack every day. But
maybe it's good. Maybe we just keep moving it around, and as long as people attend.
I don't lock the door. I trust people.
Software is different than hardware, though. Like hardware does have, you need some fixtures that are not quite the same. To just go like take your laptop and hack it. So.
Well, LA, we have a lot of co-work because we have a lot of people who think I want to make my own company. We don't really have as much hardware hacking going on. You know, that was a really good point about, you know, you need soldering irons and bandages and stuff like that. Yeah, well, yeah, you've got like, I'm coming over to your hackerspace, forget mine.
That's a wonderful example. Like Null Spaces in downtown has tons of soldering irons, great stuff, and at the time there's 3 guys there. Like,
Same ones.
Yeah, exactly, the same guys. Like, so we actually have it. It's almost on the
trouble
community
is
to
finding out
actually
about
use
it.
it.
Like, how do you discover these things? Like, LA has all kinds of stuff, but it's all, you have to put your own city together.
That's a good point. Like we should put together a site or something.
Yeah.
I think there's also a need for more analog maps. Because I've been constantly thinking of, you know, making these digital map interfaces so we can map out our local areas and like the collectives and the spaces that are like semi-open, you know, to your local communities, but actually being on the ground in your communities and sharing that information with people that you meet is really important. And I only have a couple more minutes. About a month ago, I co-hosted an unconference at Noisebridge for horizontalist organizing. And that was great because all of these Occupy cats showed up at Noisebridge.
Tell people what Noisebridge is if they don't know, because it's really cool.
Noisebridge is an amazing hackerspace with machine shop, wood shop, industrial kitchen, lots of tools. Classes and workshops are being held all the time. Lots of events go on there as well. It's free, open to the public, open 24 hours a day. You can just go, buzz the door, and someone will let you in and give you a tour if you haven't been there before. It's run pretty much very much an anarchist model. Duocracy is the principal ethos, which is if you see something that needs doing, do it, and don't ask for permission. And I think that's really key too, is trying to foster in our culture less of this. People are, you know, when I go to Occupy protests, you see that a lot too. It's like this wandering, as Simone was mentioning, wandering around, you know, running around looking for something to do. Or someone to ask permission to do something. But if we foster a culture of just people being leaders and not having to ask for permission, I think Noisebridge really fosters that kind of attitude. So it's been a really inspiring place for me and is principal to my dropping out of academia, because I can see that there's a way to do education much, much better than we have right now. This system is broken. But there are lots of people working on awesome alternative models. So we need to like talk loudly about these kind of places and the sorts of spaces and attitudes and practices that people are already engaging in. And the more I think that trickles into the popular culture, the better chance we have at creating the society that we want to live in. So a society of leaders, of people who aren't just passively consuming, but are actively creating the world that they want to live in. So.
Oh yeah, I gotta applaud that.
Thank you.